Fallen Leaves Publishing presents Tales from the Tank, Season 1, Episode 6, Lost. Written by Porsche Ray and read by Mallory Peters. This is companion material for Book 1 in the Melinda series. Introduction. Tales from the Tank are short stories that are companions to the larger standalone novels in the Melinda series. They can be read before, after, or simultaneously with their corresponding novel. This story happens alongside Chapter 11 in Melinda and Her Father Go Scuba Diving, Book 1 of the Melinda series. Where the main books in Melinda focus on Melinda herself, Tales from the Tank is from Teensie's perspective, and will introduce you to things Melinda is unaware of. Preface. Hi, I'm Teensie, Melinda's pet fish. I figure since she gets to tell her stories, I should be able to tell mine as well. You and I, well, we probably don't have much in common. I am a goldfish after all, and I need to be submerged in water to survive. You likely live on the dry side and breathe air and all that. I think you'll be surprised at how similar our stories actually are. Listen on for a behind-the-scenes peek at what really goes on in the Longer's house. Tales from the Tank, Season 1, Episode 6, Lost. I looked out across the ocean nervously and seriously doubted myself. How was it that I even knew about this treasure? How did I know about most of what I knew? I knew tons of facts about different ocean things, but next to nothing about the human stuff that Melinda and her father seemed to care about the most. Things like money and school were obscure thoughts in my brain. The currents of the ocean, though? An ocean I had apparently never even set a fin in. Those were written in my blood. My biggest fear, the one that I tried to splash out of my head every time it fell in, was that Melinda and her father wouldn't value me enough to keep me around if I didn't take them to the treasure. I was new to their family, if they even considered me a part of it yet. I still had to find my place. Already they had gone through so much trouble and undertaken so much work just to make this trip a reality. What if I let them down? I didn't think they would cast me aside, but I had no guarantee. My entire life rested in their hands. Quite literally when they were holding my tank. We were in Nova Scotia, hot on the trail of a treasure lost at sea. I was the goldfish that would lead them to it. I filtered air through my gills and looked around from the edge of the fishing boat that Melinda's father had chartered. Was this the place? It looked right, but felt off. Did I go with my brain or with my gut? I honestly didn't know. And that scared me. "You guys know how long you plan to be down there?" asked Captain Jax. Melinda and her father looked at me. I shrugged. This was going to be my first time ever swimming in the ocean. I might die of shock just trying to prove to them that I had value. Could I tell them how long we were going to need to look for? Not a chance. I wasn't even sure this was the place. Things looked so different on the dry side. Not knowing how my body would react to the water, I didn't want to jump in before I was at least reasonably sure we were close. But all of my landmarks were submerged in an environment I was still hoping I'd be able to survive. "We're just going to take a look around and then come back," said Melinda's father. "I'd say 20 minutes. But if we end up being closer to 30, don't worry. Our tanks are good for about 45. I watched as Captain Jax nodded. He'd definitely watched Melinda and her father look at me for the answer. But he hadn't said anything. This was pretty much what I'd come to expect. People just didn't think fish could talk. So they didn't question it. A few months ago, the Longer's house was hit by lightning. Ever since then, I've been able to communicate. Not just with the Longers either. Last night, I'd had a chat with the housekeeper while Melinda and her father were out at supper. She had told me stories of her mother's fish, Flicker, who had undergone a similar transformation as me. She never did tell me what happened to Flicker, only that she wasn't around anymore, and that her mother missed the fish dearly. Would Melinda and her father miss me when I was gone? I hoped so. Melinda and her father wobbled like penguins to the side of the boat. This was their first time in the ocean as well. As much as I was worried about what the cold water would do to me, I was also worried about what it would do to Melinda and her father. They weren't exactly strong swimmers. They were proficient enough to pass their scuba test in the training pool. But this was the real deal. I wasn't sure how smart it was for us to be out here. Alone. Melinda's father set my tank into the water first, and I swam out. The cold water hit me like an ice cube. For an instant, I worried my body would just refuse to move, and I'd drift in the current until something ate me. Then, life seemed to return to my extremities. I could move once more. I swam in a quick circle, half surprised I wasn't dead, and then swam so my body was mostly up on the dry side. It was uncomfortable. I couldn't breathe and I had to hold my breath, but it wasn't dangerous or anything. I pointed my fin into an approximation of their thumbs-up sign and smiled when Melinda returned the gesture. I was ready. We were going to do this. I dove under the water and moved quickly to the side as Melinda and her father backed up. They were getting ready to splash into the water, just like they had practiced in the pool. I was about 75% sure they were going to be successful getting into the ocean. The other 25%, involved them changing their minds and backing out of the entire adventure, hopefully scooping me out of the water before they boated away. I wasn't prepared for the force their entry into the water had on me. It tossed me to the side like a dry leaf, and I smashed into the hull of the boat. Note to self, I thought. Stay away from the boat when the humans enter the water. I watched them surface, grin at each other, and give a real thumbs up to Captain Jax. We were in the water. We were treasure hunters. Except we weren't. As soon as we got a little deeper, I knew I should have listened to my gut. Now that I wasn't worried about dying from shock or the longers backing out, I was free to listen to the current and the water around me. Everything was wrong. The color of the water, the way it tasted, the viscosity. It was all off. I don't know how my fish brain knew what it knew, but it did. We're in the wrong place, Melinda, I said. She looked at me and blew bubbles. It was strange. In my environment, I was the one who could really communicate. No wonder all those times I'd begged for extra food or told her to stop catching me in her net, she'd ignored me. Bubbles sent a message full of nothing. I'm really sorry, but we need to go back up and try again, I said to her father. He also looked at me and blew bubbles my way. We should go up, I said, pointing my fins up to the surface. The treasure isn't here. We need to get further out. They both shook their heads no and pointed deeper. If I had eyelids, I would have used them to block out what I was seeing. What part of "we're in the wrong place" had they not understood? It wasn't as if we were somewhere tropical with amazing things to look at. Here, it was basically just us and the water. There were some whales and sharks, but hopefully those were in the far, far distance. I watched as they swam deeper and deeper. Guys, I said, we need to get back up to the ship. We're in the wrong place. The treasure isn't over here. They just shook their heads at me and kept doing their thing. I swam around their heads. Why aren't we going back up? I asked. They tried to speak. I could see their lips moving, but they weren't making words. Just bubbles. I don't know what I expected from them. On the dry side, they ignored me when I didn't agree with them or say the things they expected to hear. I felt stupid for thinking it would be different here in the wet. Down here, I was free to move around as I pleased. Yet, I still felt tethered to them. Sure, I could run away, swim off into the vast darkness of the ocean, and never see them again. But that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted them to hear me, to listen to me, to respect what I had to say. I wanted to be treated as an equal, not as a pet. Every day that was becoming clearer and clearer to me. But how could I get them to understand? Finally, Melinda's father pointed up to the surface, and the three of us rose together. He pulled off his mask and took a big breath of fresh air. "That was exhilarating," he said. "You guys find what you were looking for down there?" asked Captain Jax. "No," said Melinda's father, "but we're close." "I don't want to do this again," said Melinda, shivering as she climbed out of the water. She held out my tank so I could swim in, then lifted me up as she found herself a towel. "That was a huge waste of time. There was nothing to see, and it's cold." "Melinda," said her father. "And it's all your fault," she said to me. "You told us to go in the water here, and there wasn't anything for us to see." "Melinda," said her father again, a note of warning in his voice. Melinda's father took my tank from her and set it beside him, as far away from Melinda as possible while still being on the same boat. "She'll calm down," he said. "She's just frustrated. I think she wanted this to be easy." "I wanted it to be easy too," I said. "Why did you stay down for so long?" "I needed to prove to myself that I could do it," said her father with a shrug. "You said there was no treasure here, so that took all the pressure off. Now I can trust in myself more when you do find the treasure. I'll be more confident going deeper." "And Melinda?" I asked, looking over at where she sat, cold, wet, and glaring at us. "She'll be over it by the time we stop again," said her father. "She's not going to want to miss getting the treasure." "And if I can't find the treasure?" I asked. This was my first time putting my fear into words and saying them out loud. It was painful, and I instantly regretted it. Melinda's father shrugged. "Then we've all had our first family vacation together, done some amazing things, and learned some new skills," he said. I wanted to believe him. But would he really be that relaxed about it? "Teensie," said her father, "at some point you're going to have to relax and stop worrying that we are going to toss you away. You're worth more to us than some lousy treasure." Captain Jax asked which way we wanted to go, and Melinda's father looked at me. I pointed in the direction I knew the treasure was. I hoped it was still there. I didn't want to have to test Melinda's father's words so quickly after hearing them. I looked over at Melinda. She was still glaring at us. It was the same way she looked whenever she was asked to redo some of her homework. It made me uncomfortable, and I didn't like being on the receiving end of it. I hoped she would be able to forgive me for my mistake so we could have fun again. Author's note: enjoyed this short story? Give the main series a try. Melinda is available in print, digital, and audiobook formats. Looking for a free copy? Request your local library stock them, or join my special review team. Check my website for details, PorscheRay.com. The end. This has been a Fallen Leaves Publishing production of Tales from the Tank. Season 1, Episode 6. Lost. Written by Porsche Ray and read by Mallory Peters. Produced, directed, edited, and mastered by Fallen Leaves Publishing. To listen to samples and learn more about the authors, please visit the Fallen Leaves Publishing website at fallenleavespublishing.com. The Melinda series is available wherever you buy your books. Source copyright and production copyright 2022 by Fallen Leaves Publishing.